Alright,
Hello.
episode 6.
Episode 6 it is.
Time to get this show on the road. What beer we're reviewing today? It is the Endless River by Flavorly.com.
And Bad Brewing, I believe, collaborated on this one too.
I don't know who that is.
Didn't do your research?
No, I didn't. You have the box.
It doesn't tell you on the box, lad.
It tells you in the fucking bottle.
It actually doesn't. Well, it doesn't actually say on the bottle. I don't
Anyway.
believe so.
It is a session IPA. That's
Yeah.
on the bottle.
Would you like me to read the description?
Please do.
So, some days are made for taking it easy. Some beers are too. This rich golden IPA is the perfect session sipper. A combination of Centennial, there we go, Columbus and Summit hops. It swims with notes of tangy lemon and lime with just a little spritz of pineapple in the shallows. There's only one thing to do. Sit back, relax, and take a ride on the endless river.
Well, it's the shit, like the most forced description I've ever heard. But pour away.
How rude of me, I'm pouring my own first.
I couldn't care less. Like,
Yeah, well.
you're ultimately the person who's going to enjoy it more, so I couldn't give a shit.
No, that's a defeatist attitude. So
Well, let's face it. Like,
anyone who's been keeping
do you know what's
up with
actually
these-
wild funny? I was sitting in the house and I went to get a wee drink out of just a wee normal soft drink from the dinner. Guess what I took a wild notion of?
What?
I just thought to myself, fuck, if I had some of them Vienna bios, I would have cracked one open right now.
Oh, so wait a minute. We've made some amount
Breakthroughs, yeah.
some amount of
We've made
progress.
breakthroughs.
Woo!
We've made breakthroughs in the not liking beer realm. I like Vienna lagers because they're, in his opinion, shit.
Seems to be the way of it.
Okay, this smells infinitely better than the other IPA.
Yeah, I already had a sip of it, which was kind of by reaction. I didn't
Yes,
need to.
I seen you do that. Cheeky of you.
Not a lot going on in the nose there.
To me, that's just Brewdog in a different bottle.
This is objectively... No, so this is personally the
I
worst.
get the lemon.
Do you?
And then after,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's there.
right at the end.
I'm not a super big fan of this. Really?
But to me, it tastes the same as Brewdog.
No, but see, you're not really tasting it then, are you?
Pineapple can get fucked. I don't know where the pineapple's coming in.
Yeah, not getting a... When it said a hint...
So is there Polaris hops or Hercules hops in this?
The one that sticks out to me the most is Centennial. I enjoy the fact that they're using that because...
Oh, is that a hops?
Yes,
Well, I didn't know that when you were reading out the description. So
there's been a bit of
if you knew that Centennial was a hops when he was reading out the description, you get a bonus point.
You're as big a loser as I am. Go you. Centennial hops are moderately interesting as hops go for a few different reasons. One, really, really hard to harvest. Like, incredibly difficult. There's like a lot of labour. It's very labour intensive a hop to like manufacture and to extract. Two, nobody cared about them. Like, nobody ever used them up until the last couple of years, and they've had a big resurgence.
Right.
And three, all they really do, they're really acidic. All they really do is add bitterness and like aroma, which ironically enough, I don't get a huge amount of in this. Like, I don't smell. I mean, I might be sick or
Oh,
something.
I'm definitely getting the bitterness.
Oh, it's bitter. This is bitter. This is the definition. This is a bitter beer. Like, there is.
It's not as bitter as the what is it? The flamingo juice. That we done, or was Electric Boogaloo that was better? I can't remember which one was better. There was
Flamingo
one.
juice would have been an IPA.
Aye, but it was really better. This is nowhere near as bitter as flamingo juice.
Did we say this was a session IPA? This is a session IPA.
Yeah. So no, flamingo juice was as well, wasn't it?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah.
No, Flamingo juice was a tropical IPA,
Tropical
which
IPA
generally
yes.
doesn't really mean anything. It's just a gimmick.
It's just a gimmick.
But
yeah.
yeah, this is also like 3.8%.
It's very cloudy too.
Yes, it's quite cloudy. Pretty common of a...
Someone say that's a dirty brew.
Who?
I don't know. I've heard like if
Some.
it's not clear, it's like a dirty brew.
Some beers are cloudy. Some beers are cloudy. Some beers aren't.
Oh, I'm gonna
Sniff.
stop that because I have no wash down, and I hate it. So
More for
Graham's gonna
Graham.
do the usual. Actually, I thought would have been quite an interesting thing I seen on thingy Amazon
Right.
is certain companies, whiskey companies, have collaborated to do Game of Thrones, a sort of edition of their whiskies.
Oh. What does that mean?
So basically, there's like different. So, Lagavulin,
Ooh.
which is like one of the most expensive whiskies I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yes.
It's like you're talking a cheap one's 50 quid. Like they collaborated, and theirs is like the House Lannister is Lagavulin,
Okay.
and then like obviously, I gave 3 guesses. White Walker, who is it?
Johnny Walker.
Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker done a White Walker. Does the White Walker?
Yeah.
And then there's a Tully, Tyrell, Stark. Stark's is joint up. I couldn't tell who Stark's was. And then there's somebody else done. I can't remember who it was. What the company done. There's the Night's Watch and everything as well.
Yeah.
And there's their bottle. Night Watch's bottle is entirely black.
Ooh, that's
So
kind
it's
of cool.
all black, and like all the labels black, and the writing's like a slightly lighter shade of black.
Yeah.
You know, and shit. So it's a cool looking bottle and stuff. So it would be interesting to get, if we could figure out a way of getting some of those and trying them.
Send them a wee email and just tell them, the level of influence we have.
Exactly.
We'd buy
20 views in the last one, like.
Send us a wee bottle, like, it'll be grand. Also, just before we go any further, I'm having a wee mare here.
Top news I've got, and this was on the news yesterday on the radio. I heard this. So, thingy. Nike.
Yes.
So apparently a pile of like female sports personalities have got like, there's a big controversy now because like a few of them have got pregnant, and then when they go on maternity leave and say, oh, by the way, I'm having a baby, so I'm on maternity leave now, like Nike's just pausing their contract until they come out of maternity leave. So basically they don't get their sponsorship for Nike until they are finished maternity leave and then come back to whatever their jobs are, or their thingies.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's kind of but a bit like, oh, that's not fair, like they're losing their sponsorship just because they want to have a baby.
It's absolutely fair.
I had contemplated this initially. I was like, okay, it's not particularly fair, I suppose, but then if you think about it from Nike's perspective, it's like, well, we're paying you to wear our clothes, to be a public personality, to go out and about in our gear, to promote it.
Yeah.
If you're on maternity leave, you're not doing that.
Yeah.
Therefore, so why should we pay you to do it when you're not? They're not firing them. They're just saying, well, that's all right. For as long as you're not doing it, we'll not pay you. But I can see the other argument, because if that's their job, a lot of athletes don't get money from being athletes. They get money from sponsorships.
Yeah.
So that money, and then they have to raise a kid, and if they don't have that money, you know what I mean? It's like, it's a very tricky one.
Yeah.
So I think for Nike's reforming the contract, but I was just wondering, like, if you had a similar Nike's reforming to make it a wee bit fairer, but like I can see their thing. It's ultimately going to be because of this whole PC world we live in now, that if Nike didn't do it, they're going to get a big backlash. So it's they're forced into doing it, even though they're probably thinking, oh, well, it's not fair for us to reform the contract, but we're going to have to, or we're going to lose sales.
I feel like it's a difficult one because of the type of job that it is.
Aye.
In that it's a bit different than a job that you're, say, like an office job, like administrative role that you're contracted into. Maternity leave is built into that.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're a rep for a company that's specifically based on your image as an athlete or something, if you can't do that
for a period of time,
it sort of makes sense to me that you don't get it. Regardless,
it totally makes sense. Yeah.
It's not as if they're turning around and being like, oh, I'm not paying you because you're a woman and you want to like have a child, they're literally turning around and going, you can't.
And this brings on another important point that I think, and like paternity leave.
Yes, sir.
Like, I think men get like 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah.
When I was born, my dad didn't get anything.
It's quite common not to get anything, depending on where you are in the world.
Yeah, exactly. So like, but it's not a sort of the thing like, I'm not saying, oh, we have to go on the same length of time as women, because obviously a woman goes through far more in childbirth than a man ever does.
Yes.
But what that woman does need is support.
Yeah.
And even women are kind of, some women I've heard say 3 weeks of having the man in the house to help out isn't enough support.
No. You know, barely getting to grips with anything in the first 3 weeks, like, sure. What?
Yeah, exactly. So like, you know, they need support, and then obviously who knows, like if there's complications in pregnancy, and maybe the man's not well after a while afterwards or something. So, you know, there's a load of things. It's like, well, you know, paternity leave should be a wee bit more.
Yeah.
It should be like maybe 6 or 7 weeks, because
like
the man's like getting 6 or 7 months off. So 6 or 7 weeks for a man isn't that bad.
Yeah.
So just saying, like,
yeah,
you know,
no, I agree.
And if you're gonna pursue this whole fair's fair,
right? Okay.
you know, if you're gonna go the whole down that route, I think one of the big things I've noticed. Here's the big thing I've noticed, right?
Okay.
When it comes to political correctness, you're politically correct as long as it doesn't offend you. So you can offend anybody you want, but as long as you're not offended, that's what's important. So my point is, right, so this kind of go back to the whole thing, and we're just got to coming from Endgame, and like there's obviously the whole Brie Larson thing of like her being like, oh, women are being misrepresented or mistreated and paid less, blah blah blah, right? Which is fair. Everybody should be paid the same. I don't care who you are. You should be paid the same. You do the same job, pay the same. End of discussion.
Yes.
The argument on the employers have, but like, oh, but if a woman wants to have a baby, we have to pay for her paternity leave, and men don't get that, so therefore it balances out. And I was like, if you're gonna go in that, it is fair that way. If you're gonna go that way, but also ultimately the fair thing is, it shouldn't matter if she wants to have a kid. You pay her the same when she's there.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. Right. So I'm not gonna get into that kettle of fish, but the other side of it is, so here's the thing, right? So if you have a problem with someone, so Brie Larson was saying about women are being misrepresented, men get more, stuff like that there, and then she's sort of done this whole throwaway comment about men. You know, I'm not going to take it for a 48-year-old man having, like, you know, saying what he didn't like about some film. And I said, but like, you know, everyone's entitled to their opinion. It doesn't matter who they are, gender or not. Yeah. So my thing is, you're so obsessed. So it's like in that example, she's so obsessed about women being treated unfairly. She's not saying, oh, stop treating women unfairly, treat everyone equally. She's saying, we need to go to this here, this is blah, blah, blah. It's over the top. So basically what you're doing is you're mistreating another class of people, just so your class of people that you're fighting for is treated better. But in doing that, you're mistreating a whole other people.
Yeah.
Like you're putting a whole other people down, and you're treating them as you are currently. The whole point is, like, you're treating them now just because you're like, it's like a transgender and cis versus cis and all that shit, right? So basically, the transgender ones are all like, oh, you shouldn't label me.
Yeah.
Who come up with it? Label cis. It wasn't fucking normal. Like, cis males didn't come up with it. The transgender community and the LGBTQ plus, like, came up with it. So like in you not wanting to be labelled, you've created a label.
I feel as though what you're doing is lumping a group of people in with another group of people that don't share the same opinion. The kind of people who say things. So you're taking the whole.
I'm saying everybody should be treated the same. Doesn't matter who you are.
And I know you're right. I know that's what you're saying. But when you branched off there and you started talking about the LGBTQ plus thing, you started being like, oh, they say they don't want to be labelled, but who created the term cis? What you're doing there is you're effectively lumping a group of people together with another group of people who don't share the same views. There are people in that community who would run around being like, you can't label me, you shouldn't be labeling me, you're like forcing this identity upon me that I don't want. And then there are people in that community who aren't, they are fighting for a label, they are fighting to be recognised as what they want to be, they're fighting to be recognised as a man or a woman or whatever it is. So they're two completely different subsections of that community. It doesn't work like that.
Aye, but I mean there's individuals in it.
Oh yeah, there are individuals.
I'm not
who
saying
would,
all of them go on like that. I'm
I
saying
know,
there's
but
individuals
that's
who
what I mean.
Contradict themselves.
But those who came up with the term or the descriptive term like cis male or cis female aren't the same people by and large that are running around being like, don't label me. They're completely different. They wouldn't do that. They're not gonna.
I've heard people use literally I've heard people who go on about labels using the label cis.
But there are always going to be those that are completely ignorant of their own cause. Like there are going to be people like that.
Well, anyway,
It's always the same.
that's my point. Well, put it like it shouldn't be any labels. I'm not saying everybody should be a homogenous mass of nothing, but I'm just saying, it's not a label. You are the sort of thing is like what I've noticed. Actually, I meant to bring it. This just goes straight into a thing. Oh, I don't want to say it because I forgot the book. What I've got is the Unbombers Manifesto.
Okay.
Right? If you don't know who the Unabomber is, you know who the Unabomber is.
I'm aware.
So he basically is this guy, I think he was in the 90s or maybe earlier, like 70s or something, and he posted a pile of bombs around and he wanted to bring down the infrastructure of society.
Yes.
How they caught him was his manifesto and the language he uses, and then the way he wrote it, and the sort of the spacing in the paragraph and all that. It was a very specific literary type for a university, and the only university that used it was this university, and then they started narrowing it down until they found him.
Yeah.
Who he was. So basically one paragraph in it, he talks about leftist, right? And I'm gonna misquote here, but
Just paraphrase it.
I'm paraphrasing here, but basically what he's saying, the leftist is so obsessed. So the leftist will fight for what they believe is right, if it's women's rights, black rights, whatever it is, gay or lesbian or whatever, right? But in doing so, they in themselves are admitting that they are not equal, because nobody else is fighting but them. So nobody else is saying that you're not equal, and nobody else is saying whatever it is. It's a feeling within themselves that they feel they have to correct. So they fight to correct the feeling rather than accepting who they are themselves and leaving it at that. Are you with me?
That sounds like some pseudoscience or pseudo-psychology.
Well, he was breaking down the
nonsense.
psychology of the leftist.
It doesn't... Well, fair enough. Okay.
So
I'll roll with it for a minute. Yeah, okay.
So that's what he was... So basically it's like... Right. So it's like saying to me, gingers have no souls. Right?
So if you were to...
So basically, if I believed that in myself, somewhere inside me, if I took offence to someone saying to me, oh, you're a ginger, you don't have a soul. If I took offence to that, I'd be like, they don't have souls. People need to stop going on about this, blah, blah, blah. Like, and I would start going, and going mental and saying, gingers should unite. Gingers should unite. Only gingers should fuck gingers and have ginger children and all this here shit. You would go about to prove... But you're not proving it to anybody else. I wouldn't be proving it to anybody else but me. It wouldn't be until nobody could say it that I would be like, aha, I've won. But actually, it's something within myself that I'm not comfortable admitting that I have a problem with.
Are you sure that there isn't a disconnect there between...
That's only an example.
I wasn't about to go down the route of, don't you think it's a little bit different? I wasn't going to do that because I know you were just giving an example. Like, but do you not think that there's kind of a difference between the reaction that people have whenever they're marginalized and the reaction that people have whenever they feel as if they're...
Yeah, I know what you're saying, the marginalization. I think there's a difference. He makes a distinction between... There's a difference between someone marginalising you and mistreating you for who you are and you should fight for your rights.
Yeah, I mean, that's completely different.
But when you're not actually marginalised at all and you fight for something that isn't actually a problem, it's basically what he's saying is when there is no real problem, the leftist will create a problem to justify themselves.
Alright, that paints a bit of a more... I understand that a bit better now, really.
So basically what he's saying, like, there is no actual problem in society.
Okay.
When there is none, one will be invented
Well, yeah.
to pass your time.
Mm.
So basically, I'm not saying nobody says that. Obviously, there was a lot of people around this time period who were having to go with gay people and all that kind of stuff, and that is totally justified to fight against.
Yeah.
But what you're actually fighting for, here's the contradiction of it. He basically concluded the contradiction of this is that what you're actually fighting for is to be equal to someone that you think should be more inferior to you, i.e., cis white males. And he used that term, cis white males. So essentially, everyone thinks cis white males think they're better than everybody else, are higher in the food chain, are treated differently, or all this here kind of stuff, right? So basically, everybody wants to get to that level. So it's like, I want to be treated like them. I want to be treated like them. I want to be treated like them. Whoever that is, who think you want to be treated like, right?
Yeah.
So when you say that, like, I want to be treated like them, what you're actually doing is you're putting yourself down and saying, in sort of a reverse kind of way, you're admitting that you are worse than them, rather than just accepting you for you and saying, I'm no different from anybody else. Doesn't matter if you're man, woman, black, Asian, whatever. I'm no different from anybody else. I'm no worse, I'm no better.
Don't you think it's kind of hard to tell the difference between a campaign that's aspirational towards equality and a campaign that's aspirational towards making yourself feel
better?
There's a very thin line there.
It's a very thin line. That's why and also, like, you have to realise, I'm paraphrasing these bits out of this.
Oh, of course, yeah.
He is obviously saying not all leftists are like this.
Yeah.
But this is one of the many things that come about. So basically, his thing is it's a societal, industrial society and its future is what the manifesto is called.
Yeah.
And this is just literally one segment. This is one 5-page segment that I'm talking about here that I've read at the start of the book.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, it's like feelings of inferiority was one of the things. So basically, the leftist feels like he's inferior.
Okay.
Some feel like they're inferior, and through feeling inferior, they admit that they are inferior, rather than just accepting themselves and not feeling inferior. So what I'm trying to say is, the message I'm trying to get out here, which I agree with his sentiments. I don't agree with his methods. I agree with his sentiments.
Aye.
That if you're out there and you're LGBTQ plus, or you're black or Asian or whatever, and you think you're being discriminated against, just like, if you legitimately are being discriminated and you're literally getting killed off the streets, that's one thing. But if you are in a pretty good neighborhood and you're in a pretty good place and you got a pretty good job, and like, sort of just take a step back and think about it and say, am I actually getting discriminated against? You know, or is it just someone else's opinion that is hurting my feelings?
But that is discrimination.
Yeah, but it's discrimination when someone has a call to action.
I think it's important to make it clear that discrimination doesn't have to be masses of your race being killed.
No,
like,
I know.
Discrimination
I know that.
can
I
be.
know that, but I mean, in terms of jobs and stuff. Well, there's actually there's reverse discrimination now. This was on this morning. There was a police officer, right? And he done the whole thing. His dad was a police officer, and he done the whole thing, right? And he done his job, like, placement and all through school,
right,
at the police station and all.
Yeah.
And he had ridiculously good, he passed all the police exams and all the fitness exams and all this stuff.
Aye.
So he went to the local police station, where his dad works, and he was obviously, because his dad was there, he had experience working in the police station. He was very well prepared for the interview, and he said the interviewer said to him, "Was like, you're the only candidate that is this well prepared."
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't get the job, and he's like, "Well, I don't know why I didn't get the job." Went on. The dad inquired as to why he didn't get the job. There had been a complaint put in that there wasn't enough female police.
Okay, yeah.
So they prioritized female candidates over male candidates.
Yeah.
Rather than just the best candidate.
Yep.
which is discrimination, and he sued them and he won.
Yeah, that is discrimination.
That is discrimination. But you see how that is a problem now. Like,
That's a real difficulty.
PC is becoming a real problem for these sorts of things. That's what I mean. Treat the individual as the individual. Don't treat them like, oh, we have to employ them because they're LGBTQ+. Oh, we have to employ them because they're black. We have to employ them because they're Asian. We have to employ them over someone else. That's what I mean. So I'm not saying that white people are getting discriminated against, but in that particular situation, if you employ someone who's white over someone who's black just to keep the numbers even in your company, that is discrimination. And that's a sort of discrimination that you're never going to be able to fix, because the interview process and the deciding process is private to the people who make the decision. So you're never going to find out if you got discriminated against unless you're in that guy's situation.
Yeah.
Who he had a sort of a way in to find out what happened.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's my point. It's like, treat the individual as the individual, accept yourself for who you are, and realize that there's nobody else is better than you, and there's nobody else worse than you. Everyone is the same. It's only your own self-worth that you're questioning.
It's interesting that you wanted to talk about that, because I want to talk about something quite similar, but I'll circle back to that because it's interesting that you started.
Well, that's basically my point. That's the
yeah.
I'm finished now. So
that did feel like a keynote there that you just served. I'll circle back to what I wanted to talk about. I find it interesting that you were talking about this guy.
I intend to bring the book in and do wee excerpts of like the chapters as I progress through, just to see, because I think it would be a pretty interesting segment. And if that goes on, I intend to like maybe get other books and like maybe like do wee things like that out of it, because it would be pretty cool. But that's basically, I've started reading it. That's at the start of the book, and yeah, it's like, you know, I think it's a good piece of writing. Like, you know, Hitler can write a good book type of thing. He still can't. So that guy shouldn't have killed all them people, but I'm enjoying the book so far, or the manifesto so far. Like, and I like it. I like kind of his philosophies and stuff. And
happy days.
Continue with your point.
I have no idea what it was.
You said you were going to talk about something similar.
Yes, but I also had another thing that I was going to say, and now I totally forgot what it was.
Sorry, I interrupted you then.
It's all good. Yeah. My friend has a theory that she was telling me the other day, and I think it's pretty wacky, but I just think it's interesting because it's relevant. And she has this idea that white men have somehow managed to become the most discriminated against race in the time that we're living in, by way of them
positive
being given being assigned the blame for everyone discriminating upon everybody else. Sorry, I should actually say straight white males. I should assign that, because that's what she meant. She was like, somehow or another, through being blamed
that's
for
the whole
literally
thing about,
everything,
that's the whole thing about positive discrimination.
They've become discriminated against. And I thought it's a pretty wacky idea, because realistically it's not true. I mean,
I don't feel like I'm discriminated against at all.
No, neither do I, but I do find it interesting that she is a straight white woman. Not that that's relevant, but I guess statistically speaking I should mention it.
Do I know the straight white woman?
You do, surely to God.
I think I know who it is. Go ahead.
And I do find it really interesting that she fully believes that. Yeah. Given that she has access to the internet and should know rightly that that's not necessarily the case. She fully believes it, and she makes some interesting points that I'm not going to bother going into.